So it's not like I hate my current job. It's just that I won't get anywhere with it. Why am I staying at a dead-end job at the age of 33? To answer that question, I really have to go back 8 years ago to when I was still living in Vancouver. I was 24 years old and I was working at an event startup called Timely. They made event calendar plugins for WordPress and they were hemorrhaging money. So how I got my gig at Timely, I actually met the CEO while I was working at another job. I was working at a different startup to which the CEO who hired me at Timely did the interview for, because the job that I had before that one, the CEO was not a technical person, so he wasn't able to interview me. So because they were friends, the CEO of Timely actually interviewed me, checked me out, and said, all right, you're good to go. So he helped his friend hire me, but his friend laid me off. And so I was there without a job for a couple months. So the CEO of Timely, he knew that I was out of a job. He knew that I was laid off recently. So he gave me a call and he asked me, hey, Donald, I have this new startup that I'm running. And I know that you've been recently laid off. I was wondering if you were interested in a software developer position with us. So that was it. There was really no interview because he interviewed me before, right? And he knew I had the development chops. So I got hired. And I was actually the first hire because what he was trying to do, he was trying to build an in-house development team because all of his developers at that time were from either Russia or from South America. So he was really trying to build that in-house team. I was the first hire, and after me, he decided to hire a project manager. So the project manager came in like a couple weeks after me, and after him, both the project manager and the CEO, they were looking for a senior developer because at that time I only had like a year of development experience, so they needed a senior developer. So they hired this guy from Calgary and he came over, and immediately what happened was that both this new senior developer and the project manager, they had a fight. Not an actual fight because they were both pretty much nerds, but they had a passive aggressiveness towards each other. There was a lot of beef. They both thought that each other were idiots and they didn't understand the decisions that they were making. So immediately after the senior was hired, he was a pretty nice guy actually. The workplace politics started happening and the workplace culture became toxic, and the CEO was rarely ever there, and he didn't really know what was going on. When he was there, the culture would be nice and it would be, you could stand it. But when he wasn't, which was a lot of the times, because he was out doing meetings, I don't know why, when the company is hemorrhaging money, that is when the air got really tense and really bad. And in hindsight, I kind of wondered why the project manager was always asking me out for lunch. And now, after thinking about it, I realized that he was actually trying to recruit me to be on his team so that whenever there are disagreements, I would be there to agree with him, to be on his team. It was such a long couple of months. I actually lasted there for a year. Well, just enough so I could pay off my student loans, right? So every time I go to work after the weekend ended, I would have to take the SkyTrain to get to work. And I remember that every single time I came near to the office to start my day, I just have such a squeeze on my heart. Like I didn't want to be there. And I'm not an anxious guy generally, but I got anxious, I got nervous, I got all sorts of bad feelings. And that when I knew that was it. I had to quit. So before you quit your job, son, if you're listening to this story, always make sure that you're gonna get severance, which means you can't really quit, but you have to get laid off because that's the only way you are going to get severance in Canada or in the US. And that's the only time you can collect unemployment. So I didn't know that back then. So I basically just had a little nest egg of savings, and because I was more risk taking and didn't think about these things when I was 24, I just quit. So I was unemployed for a couple months, and then I went applying for jobs, aimed for jobs in the US, got employed by the current company that I work for here in the US. And that was it. I moved to the US and life was great because I was making some pretty good money as a young bachelor. Like 75K was my starting over here. And I picked up dancing as a hobby. So what I do is I'd go travel across the nation to dance. I made a lot of friends doing that, and I met a lot of girls. Living in the USA changed me a lot. It allowed me to learn a lot about myself until that one major event where I fell in love and I got dumped at the same time as me having a near-death experience. That brought me to rock bottom. It was a paragliding accident, actually. It was my last flight, and my instructor, for some weird reason, told me to fly over these trees. And as I saw those trees, I knew I wasn't going to make it through them. So I crashed into those trees and I hung from the treetops. Luckily, my paraglider caught the treetops, and I hung from those treetops looking down 100 feet to my death. So I was just hanging by a paraglider's thread. So at that same time, I got some PTSD. And in moments of weakness, I showed that to the girl that had a one-sided love for. And she basically said, you know, I'm seeing this other guy now, so I really can't see you anymore. So basically, I got dumped at the same time that I had this paragliding accident that really screwed with me in my head. That was rock bottom, and I didn't know what to do from there. So I started searching for help. I started looking into books, did a lot of self-development, personal development, you know, like Tony Robbins. And that was the first time that I actually went to church. I went to Church of the Highlands. I went searching for God, and at that time I was not a believer. So after that, you know, COVID happened and we went on lockdown. And during lockdown, when you have so much time on your hands, you start looking into things. And one of the things that I started looking into was Bitcoin, because I wanted to make some extra money. And in the process of doing that, I learned about inflation and money printing. And you can kind of see it all around you, because the prices of anything, when they started printing money, starts getting more expensive. And I started thinking, all right, how am I going to save my family and myself from all this money printing that the government is doing, that the government will continue to do, is doing now, and will continue to do in the future? And around that same time, you know, in my 20s, I was very much the guy that says, I don't want to have marriage. I don't want to have kids. But after going to church and everything, my mindset on that shifted. It became, all right, this is something that I actually want. And you know how women have baby fever season? I don't think I really have anything like that. I think for men, it's kind of like, all right, we just want to have our legacies continued. And that's the main reason for making kids. So 2021 happens, right? And I moved to DC. Around that same time, Bitcoin hits $70,000. My friends were jumping from company to company because they wanted to make more money, and the easiest to get like 10 to 40K raises was to literally jump from one company to the next company. My best friend back then over in DC was doing the same, and he's making the most. He's making like $250,000. And I tried to do the same. I started rewriting a lot of my resumes and rewriting my cover letters, and I got a couple of interviews actually that I thought went well, but I never got an offer, so I got rejected. And I'm sure you feel it too. You know, you are spending all this time writing all these resumes and all these cover letters and spending time preparing for interviews, doing all these interviews, and you keep getting rejected. And you keep getting rejected so much that you start thinking to yourself, what's the point? Why am I not good enough? Am I not good enough? And when you start thinking about that, you start resigning from that job search. You think that you'll never get a job. And that's the point that I got to. I thought I wasn't good enough and that I would never get hired by another company. And what really made me stop was that I still have that job and I was making pretty good money. And I thought to myself, it's chill, it's a good work-life balance. And because I had that, that made me stop trying to jump ship to another company. But inside, man, I was dying inside, because what I was doing is I was just clocking in, clocking out, 9 to 5, you know? And at that time, I still wanted to someday, you know, find a partner, have a family, but I also felt what was holding me back was that with my current job, current pay, I wouldn't be able to support a family. And I still feel that way. And then what's worse was I started doing something that you should never do. I started fantasizing about different multiple worst case scenarios. So the worst case scenario that keeps on replaying in my head right now is, all right, the goal is to have a partner and a family, but the tech sector right now is so bad and nobody is hiring. What if I have a family? You know, I make good money as a bachelor and I can support myself pretty well with what I'm making, but that's just for myself. If I had a family, I don't think that my current pay and my current job will be able to support a full family with me as the breadwinner, because that's how I was raised. My dad was a breadwinner, my mom was a stay-at-home mom. That's ideally what I want. So I need to find a better paying job, but that comes as a risk of losing my currently great work-life balance. What if I end up at a company that's like my last company in Vancouver with a toxic work culture? That'll make me depressed as hell. And then you will have kids seeing a depressed dad that is just, you know, dreading going to work every Monday. That's not good. I mean, how many men are stuck in that position right now where they are working a job that they hate? What the hell is this woman doing? So this lady right back there do not know how to drive. But anyways, I was just thinking in my train of thought, how many fathers are out there working a job that they hate, but they're working that job because they have a family to support? I mean, my heart goes out to them because I don't think that I'm strong enough to do that, actually. I feel that if I was put in that position with my temperament, I'd end up killing myself. So the current plan literally is to, you know, work my current job, which has really good work-life balance, and it makes enough money to support me, but not a family. But it gives me the time to work on side hustles like this YouTube channel on my off time. And hopefully, one of these side hustles will pick up, make enough money, and replace my current income, or supplement it greatly so I don't have these fears that I have for myself. Honestly speaking, I don't think I can work for another employer because my entire family are a line of entrepreneurs. My dad, my aunt, my uncle, my grandparents, my great-grandparents, they were all entrepreneurs. So when I look for other jobs to apply to on LinkedIn, Glassdoor, Indeed, I always end up asking myself, what's the point? How is this job going to be different from my current one? Yes, maybe I end up with 50K more and maybe I get a little bit of equity, but I am still going to have a boss. I'm still going to have some Gen X, boomer, or early millennial in upper management. And they are gonna stay there because people are working long, people are living longer, and they're retiring later. That is my current company right now. There are a bunch of middle management employees that want to climb up. They want to get promoted to upper management, but there's only that many spots in upper management. So they're just gonna have to wait until upper management retires, they quit, they get fired, or they die. And you know, every single position has a salary cap. So for example, I work as a software engineer, and if you're employed, the most you're going to get outside of San Francisco, it's probably going to be $250,000. And anybody from the outside might be saying, $250,000 is a lot. And yes, it is, but it comes with a lot of strings attached. That means you're basically not going to have work-life balance. Usually, you're going to have to do overtime without overtime pay, or you have to be on call. And coming from a family of entrepreneurs who has great work-life balance, I just can't stand that. So that's what I don't want to do. I just can't live with the idea that someone is your boss and they have power over you. And if you're not doing the job that they want you to do, or you're not gonna take up that on-call role, they can fire you and take away your income at any time. So guys, if you're enjoying this story, just know that I'm not a very good storyteller. I'm not a natural storyteller. What I do is I write a script on what I want to talk about. I insert it onto keepviews.com, which is an AI that will tell me which part of my script is good, which part of my script is bad, which part of my script needs a little bit more loving. And if you are a content creator as well and you go through the same process that I do, you work with a script, you might want to try keepviews.com for yourself, so it can tell you which part of your script needs a little bit more loving. And you can find out more at keepviews.com. Now back to the video. So, before talking to you, I thought I was scared to move. But I think that it's not that I'm scared to move, it's that I'm scared that nothing will actually change. Because I'm thinking that if you find a new job, what's gonna change is you're gonna get a higher salary, and a higher salary is great, but everything else stays the same, and it's the everything else that I think will give me happiness. I don't really care about that extra bump in my pay raise. I'm comfortable with the amount that I'm making. But the other things, like not having a boss, that will give me freedom, and that will ultimately give me what I consider happiness. And I think that the best way to do that right now is entrepreneurship. I don't think there is any other way. The only way to freedom, as I can see it right now actually, is to keep on working on these side hustles and hope that one of them stick or pick up. Because the other option is I keep on working this job and I actually, instead of being single like right now, I actually have a family and they're going to see me depressed, hating my job every single day. I don't think that is a healthy model for kids to be raised from 0 to 18, seeing their dad sad all the time, feeling like he's trapped in a prison, but he has to work that job in order to support them. That is something that I don't want over a dad that has actually made it. He took a chance, took a risk. He went and tried to do his own thing, found freedom, and is now happy and is trying to pass down what he has learned to his own children. That is the scenario that I want and that I'm betting on and that I'm working hard for. And ultimately, that's the reason I'm staying at a dead-end job at the age of 33, because this job has great work-life balance. It can give me time to make bets. And if you want to come along on this journey and watch me take shots, then you don't really have to subscribe to this channel, but you do have to watch this other video right here.